Now the latest ITV news from Granada Reports in the northwest.
Hello, welcome to Granada Reports.
Hello there, on the programme this evening.
The former drugs boss whose gang used children to deal across the country.
The experience I had with getting groomed, I groomed other people, and I also taught my gang members how to groom other kids. The kid that's not got the £110 trainers, the kid that's not got friends at school. You just look at the vulnerabilities.
No hero, just a thief. Jail for the homeless man who stole from the injured after the Manchester Arena bombing.
It was the scandal that shocked the nation. 100 years on, we meet the militant suffragettes.
A glass act. What led Amir Khan to react like this at his pre-fight press conference?
And join me, Marlene Class, for a Britain's Got Talent exclusive, which is going to raise thousands of pounds for a very good cause. I'm talking about Alder Hey Hospital.
So stay with us. First though, a dramatic rise in inner city gangs using children, sometimes as young as 12, to deal drugs or carry out violent crime. Greater Manchester Police says thousands of children are being groomed by gangs, and often they're sent into other regions where they won't be recognised.
Yeah, the police are so concerned about the problem, officers are now going into schools to warn of the dangers. One former gang leader has been speaking exclusively to Matt O'Donoghue about recruiting child dealers to flood the streets with Class A drugs.
He groomed me, he put guns in my hands and drugs in my hands to sell. Out of all the brothers, never would have picked him to go first. I know he's smiling down at me. Well, this is the end goal of getting into crime.
Groomed into the business by his older brother Gary, aged just 13. Matthew Norford eventually ran the Rusholme Crew gangsters. They made thousands a day selling heroin, crack cocaine and cannabis on the streets of Manchester and well beyond, until Gary was killed in a robbery.
When they took me out to the Chapel of Rest to see his body cold, that destroyed me, that.
Ex-cop Rod Carter was part of Excalibur, the anti-gang unit who helped put Matthew away. Today they work together, taking their message out to schools, educating young people about county lines.
Here in Greater Manchester, police say that it is accepted that this region is an exporter, taking criminal activity across the county lines. So police here work with forces in more rural areas, places like Lancashire, Cumbria, North Wales, where there are perhaps less established drugs markets that are less violent. They share their intelligence in a bid to smash those criminal networks.
Back on the streets of Rusholme, and Matthew has returned to his old gang's turf.
The experience I had with getting groomed, I groomed other people, and I also taught my gang members how to groom other kids. We used to get a younger person from the area who looked up to us, might be vulnerable, i.e. in the sense of he's got poor trainers, he's got come from a single parent home, mum's on the dole or dad's non-existent, he wants to be loved, you can just see it, he wants to be around us, he looks up to us. You just look at the vulnerabilities.
Rod Carter says the gangs have been forced to develop new markets, exploiting young people to carry their drugs and their cash, even their guns.
Through various policing techniques, there was a lot of success against local dealers, and they were finding it hard to do business, really. And I think this is one of the reasons that it promoted them to go out of the area to places where they weren't known.
Rod's team would gather intelligence from these South Manchester streets to pass on to police in other parts of the country. This early morning raid in Scotland is linked to a drugs gang here in the northwest. Police in Aberdeen believe traffickers from this region have moved into their area, taking over the house of a local addict.
Please! This kind of group, generally based from Cell in England, and they orchestrate the drug dealing from down there, and they'll have somebody in the address here doing the drug dealing on their behalf, basically taking advantage of the locals in the area.
It's a selfish game, so I looked at other places like Preston, Birmingham, where police don't know me and I can go there for a year, 2 years, hopefully, and have a good run and make as much money as I could. And I'll be up there until the whole parcel's gone and I've got my money. And I'll bring them down for a day, let them change, get some food, and they're right back up the motorway.
What we should really be concerned about is that they are using children and young people from Manchester to carry and supply drugs to those outlying areas. And those children and young people suffer increasing violence as they're coerced to continue to do that, so they become embedded in gangs with horrifying levels of assault and beatings accompanying it.
Dealers have realised that there's money to be made and with a lot less risk to themselves, so I think it's becoming more and more common. Can't believe it's nearly 7 years ago now, isn't it?
I know, remember that day.
Matthew turned his life around after his brother's death. Police say many other vulnerable young people are not so lucky, trapped in a life of crime. Matt O'Donoghue, ITV News, Manchester.
I groomed other people, and I also taught my gang members how to groom other kids. I didn't care. You can't care about somebody, because it's all about making money, because it takes money to buy guns, drugs, and I wanted my Marnie clothes and, watches. Well, when you're younger and you're seeing, like, your dad doing whatever he's doing, selling Class A's. My older brother, I loved him so much, I started doing it for him. He seen my dad do it, so there was no one to teach him wrong. Mum was working every hour God sent, so he kind of grew me into it. Basically, we used to get a younger person from the area who looked up to us, might be vulnerable. He's got poor trainers, he's got come from a single parent home, mum's on the dole or dad's non-existent. He wants to be loved, you can just see it. He wants to be around us, he looks up to us. So we would make him feel a part of the family. He feels like he's a thug, he's becoming a criminal. And then within a week, it will be, right, come with me. We'd take him out of town, I'd put him in the house, give him £1,000 worth of drugs, say, right, give me back the £1,000, end of the week you'll get paid. You might get paid £50 to £100. In my prime, I was making £2,000 a day, selling mostly heroin and a bit of crack cocaine. The cops in and out of that town area wouldn't know you, and I wanted to expand my territory to make more money, obviously for various reasons in the gang life. It ended with my best friend, my brother, my soulmate. It was like my dad. He ended up dying. I went to jail. All my mum's sons went to jail, and my mum had to bury her first son without none of her kids. That broke me. That made me change my life. I was in it from the age of 13 to 28, 29. I feel bad because them kids could have been basketball players, football, doctors. Instead of gang members and drug dealers and the worst of society.
Now, next tonight, can you persuade children to say no to a life of crime? Well, you can try, and that's what our next guests are doing. Rod Carter used to be a policeman and spent 15 years tracking down criminals. With him tonight in the studio is Matthew Norford. At the age of 13, he was groomed into a life of crime and went on to head up one of the area's most notorious gangs.
Now, today, they take their hard-hitting stories into schools to help children make the right choices and understand the consequences if they don't. Our correspondent Matt O'Donoghue has been with them today.
By the time I reached 15, we was known to the police for shooting people, kidnapping people, selling drugs, doing all them bad things.
Matthew Norford was born into the gang life, groomed by his older brother Gary, who in turn had been groomed by his father Matthew Rose to lead the Rusholme Crew gangsters.
In 2011, I was in prison. I went to sleep and I woke up in the morning and I seen this inmate, which is another prisoner, come running towards me. He said, 2 of your brothers been stabbed. I was like, not my brothers, because they're gangsters. So I got on the prison phone, I phoned my mum, and I'll never forget, she just went, Gary's dead. I said, you what? She said, oh, he got stabbed last night in his heart and he's dead. And your other brother's been stabbed, he's on life support.
For these 60 children at Bridge Hall Primary School in Stockport, it's a no-compromise lesson in actions and consequences. And the only reason Matthew is here is the cop who spent his days chasing him down and locking him away.
I know he's smiling down at me. Well, this is the end goal of getting into crime.
Side by side at his brother's grave, it was this tragedy that brought cop Rod Carter and gangster Matthew Norford together. Now they've swapped the South Manchester streets for the corridors and the classrooms.
Did your gang get caught by the police as well, or did they get away with it?
His unit took down all the gangs in Manchester. The gang that I ran, we all went to jail for a lot of time. You don't get away with it forever, it comes back to you.
This is where I grew up. The house behind is where I lived, and this is where all the gang stuff centred. Everything to do with drug dealing, gangs, the shootings was all from this place here.
As Matt and I drive the streets of Rusholme, he tells me why he's turned his life around.
I've had to start all over again in terms of family, friends, education, and sleepless nights of all the kids' lives that I've ruined and all the people that I've hurt.
These were lessons learned the hard way. Now he can be the teacher.
What have you learned from today?
That quite a lot of people do grooming and they can do it online and offline.
I felt sorry for him, but I didn't at the same time, because he shouldn't have been selling drugs and being in a gang.
We hope it's a bit of a reality check, really, where we highlight the dangers of grooming and the consequences of becoming involved in criminality and what that can lead to.
If one kid takes something out of the day where they don't steal or they think different, their thought pattern's different, that's a success.
See those kids hanging on to absolutely every word there. Thanks for joining us tonight, you two. Rod, first of all, a lot of people watching that will think these kids are so young to be learning about shooting and dealing drugs.
Yeah, when Matthew and I first started working together, we were going into secondary schools, and we were finding there that we'd miss the boat sometimes. Some of these youths were halfway down the path and had already been groomed and were already been involved in criminality.
What sort of age are you talking about? Already?
Well, then we were talking about 13, 14-year-olds. So we now aim at the last year of primary school.
And Matthew, is it possible, do you think, to get a child to turn away from that sort of temptation? They see the bad guys driving the big cars, don't they?
Yeah, I think a lot of hard work and consistency with love and education and knowledge, the kids will, because kids are very impressionable, so if you give them the right information and show them the right way by example, they're likely to follow you.
Are you sure though? The trouble is, so you say, we'll look after you, we'll do this for you, all you have to do is just these few things, and you get this money, you get this car, you get to hang out with the mandem.
Yeah, then I show him that hanging out with the mandem got me to jail, got my brother killed, got me shot, got my other brother stabbed, got my mum through on the floor, my mum's lost her son. So I show him that you can get a job, you can get a car, you can get a house, you can have a nice life. We're working 9 to 5 like the rest of the society do.
What did you think your mum thought about what you were doing?
No, I really thought that, she thought I was a gangster, so she wasn't really worried about me. But when I used to speak to her, she'd say, I never could go to sleep until you was in the house, or when you was in jail, I was scared of you. And I was like, well, I'm a gangster. She's like, yeah, but you're my baby, you're not the toughest guy in the world. And that made me see that I'm not as tough.
Were you ever ashamed of what you were doing?
No, when I was in that life, it's all about yourself. It's all about you and your gang members. So if I had to use a girl my age or a kid my age or a bit younger to peddle my drugs or guns, I'm going to do it, because in that life it's very selfish. I would sell you the dream. I love you, we do anything for you. When it all goes downhill, you're going to go to jail and I'm not going to come and help you. I'll just get someone else to replace you. That's the sad truth.
And Rod, do you think the police are fighting a losing battle? Charismatic guys who are having a great life for a while, how do you tell the kids, no, it's not right, and it's going to end up really badly?
I mean, luckily, now that we've got Matthew and I working together, we can try and highlight that at primary school level. I mean, we work with YOS at Stockport who create the funding for us to go into these schools, and it's almost to take that message from a cop and from somebody who's involved in that life as well, and to try and point out that it isn't as it seems.
What's the most effective thing that you say to these kids, do you think? What brings it home to them?
I think when I speak about, when we both speak about Matthew not being allowed to go to his brother's funeral, I mean, Matthew was groomed himself when he was 12, 13 years of age by his brother, and his brother was his best friend. after his brother was killed, I stopped him going to the funeral, which I think was perhaps a reality check.
So when you go into these schools, do you see yourself in these kids sometimes?
Some of them, yeah, you see them going on the wrong path and or the smart answers, and you think, I need to rein you in quickly. So that's
Can you
where
spot the ones?
Yeah, you can spot the ones that, you know, have a little following of friends, the ones that are cheeky, don't really want to listen to what I'm saying. I know it all, or I know someone who's done this. But then when they get to listen to what I've been through and what others have been through, they change
and
the
would they
think pattern.
be the ones who are the easiest ones to groom for you
Yeah,
guys? You go, yeah, we can get him.
We say that all the time.
Yeah, we will say that during the class. We'll spot the ones who are vulnerable towards it. And you know, also, when you talk about grooming and the aspects of grooming, you can see the lights go on in their eyes.
Gentlemen, thank you both very much indeed for joining us today. Fascinating. We could have talked to you for way longer, but we have run out of time. But thank you.
Thank you.
You're sending a great message to the schools.
Yeah, right
really
with
are.
you. Thank you.
OK, still to come now.